Hello, hello. Welcome to Wisdom. Oh, right when you're
When
thinking
oh
Wednesday.
when
I called you out.
the reason why I was telling you to do it was so I could take a little swig and you caught me.
Oops.
Here we go, guys. It is Wisdom
Wisdom
Wednesdays.
Wednesdays. Ooh, I liked that.
Yeah. That was
Sing
really
songy.
annoying for those of you that are in the vehicle listening to us right now. Or on your walk. Shout out to Margot Lightburn because I know that she listens to this while she's walking. So just like a little side.
Oh, hi, Margot.
Hey Margot, how's it going? We love you.
Sweet
Um,
lady.
okay. The summit is in full effect.
Mm-hmm.
We are living our best lives. It's day 3, and you can still join the summit. All you have to do is go to the link in the info button of this podcast, or just go to radicallylovedsummit.com. You will have missed the first 3 days, but it's a 10-day extravaganza, and you will get the replay at the end. Is that
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes, I
Yeah.
believe so.
Sure. You'll get the
That
replay at the
sounds
end.
right.
Yeah. So very exciting stuff, guys. We are less than 14 days away from my book coming out on 2/22/22.
Mm,
And
love that
Tessa's
date.
like,
Such a good date.
It's
Did
a
you get
great
to pick
date.
that date?
I did not, but when I did have 2 different options. Um, and I chose this one. It was between 2/22 and 2/22/22.
Oh, okay.
So
Good
I
good
chose,
decision. Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
think so. I mean, especially because the book is called You Are Radically Loved, and I think also the publisher didn't want it to be mistaken for like a, Valentine's Day love
Mhm.
relationships.
Gotcha.
Even though
Yeah.
there is a highlight in how to navigate a relationship or relationships in the book, how to be engaged, the importance of connection, and so on. It's definitely not a book about. Well, I guess it's a book about relationship to yourself.
Yeah, that's definitely. I mean, there's so many aspects to love, right? And relationship
Oh,
and
so much, such a nuanced experience.
yeah. So, yay.
Tess, how are you practicing self love these days? Let's talk about it. Let's
Ooh.
get into it.
Okay. So, one of my favorite practices is a bath. Like tons of Epsom salts. I put in, those Costco
How much?
size
Yeah.
bags. I
Yes.
think they're like 5 pounds. I put the whole thing in there.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I'm
Oh yeah,
serious.
let's do it.
And I douse it with my essential oils. I kind of mix it up with just however I'm feeling, right?
Yes.
And I sit in my tub and I read my book. I'm always reading a book. Those of you that listen to Wisdom Wednesdays know I am an avid reader,
She is
and I have
a
to
very good
have
reader.
I have to have this is like my little quirk. If I don't have 2 books after the one that I'm currently reading on my stack, I get a little bit anxious. So I always have to be like 2 steps ahead, right?
Wow. Okay.
And so another practice of self-love is I give myself the time and space every day to just zone out with a good book. In the morning, at night, I bookend my day with that. Exercise is so important to me in terms of self-love. I love, not in terms of like weight loss or anything, but I just love to feel strong. I love to feel alive. And so walking or running or weightlifting are things that make me feel really good, confident, and strong in my body.
Yeah, let's talk about the importance of feeling that confidence in our bodies because it is such an important experience. I I I think a lot of the discomfort that we encounter throughout the day or even in our lives when we start to do self-inquiry or assess certain practices like self-care, uh, oftentimes we can easily point out everything that's not happening. We can
Mm-hmm.
talk about how we're unhappy with this part of our body or how this is happening with the aging process or I'm not getting enough of this or if I had more time I would go to yoga more, I would meditate. It's it's so much easier to go in the frequency of what is not happening, as opposed to understanding what makes you feel strong, what makes you feel empowered, what makes you
Mhm.
feel good, and not beat yourself up over it, because I feel that that doesn't set you up for success. I think it's really about the small wins, right? And I'm asking Tessa this. And by the way, if you're just tuning in, we are getting a surge of new listeners because we are on iHeartMedia now.
Yay.
So welcome those of you who are new. Tessa was once upon a time a student of mine, turned like now she manages the entire world of what Radically Loved is. And I'm constantly checking in with her because I want to make sure that she's doing well, because we have a lot of things going on. And she does the same with me. You know, I think that we have a really great working relationship, and we started to do these Wisdom Wednesday segments a couple months ago now, and you guys really like them, and I think we'll keep doing it until you guys tell us to stop. So that's what that is. And
Yeah.
for me, like if this is your first introduction, my name is Rosie Acosta. Hi, nice to meet you. I'm a yoga and meditation teacher and author.
Yay.
Soon to be published author. And I love doing this work. And really, the last couple of days have been interesting. And just because it's us gals, I'm going to fill you in on some of the latest happenings, especially with regard to this book writing and publishing process. And that's why I asked you the self-care question,
Mhm.
because I know, as I said, there's been a lot of irons in the fire, and with the summit going on and the book coming out, and there's just lots of balls in the air. I don't know why I wanted to use that term. Lots of big balls in the air, guys. Okay, but by
Yes.
the way, before we started recording, I said they're always trying to just sneak it in, and Tessa said just the tip, and I thought
Just
it
the tip.
just the tip. It was hilarious. Maybe we should do another segment called just the tip.
Just the tip. Oh my God.
Meditation tips for the beginner. Just
Just
the
the
tips.
tips.
Just the tips. So if you guys actually do like that, let us know and we'll do it for you. But if not, then we will keep it moving. Uh, it's so interesting, this process of conceptualizing ideas, putting them on paper, pitching them, getting them acquired, and the process of actually doing it, to now the actual process of marketing and promoting the book
Mm.
has been a very interesting, at sometimes horrific roller coaster ride. I mean, I don't want to
Mm.
say horrific. I'm being absolutely dramatic. That is part of my nature at times. It's been a really interesting learning. I was having this conversation with Jeannie, my writing coach, who a lot of you know, and we've yet to have her on the podcast. Maybe it's time for her to come on. I actually didn't even realize it until a couple of maybe last week. I sent that newsletter out where I was talking about the writing process, and I linked in that one episode, that Wisdom Wednesday, where you and I were talking about how I got my book published, like how I got an agent and went through
Mhm.
this whole process. I realized that Jeannie, we've not had her. Maybe we should have her on the show. But I was talking with her yesterday as I'm on to the next project, ever the doer, right? I'm just on to the next book proposal already. I was telling her how I don't enjoy the marketing process as much as I did the creative and writing process. That is more my, even though it's sort of what is the story of the tortured writer, right? It's like we
Mm.
love and
Yeah.
not love the process. You know this, you're a writer as
Yeah.
well. So I was having this conversation with her, and she gave me some really great advice. She's like, look, this is part of the process too, you
Mm.
know? Because I was
Yeah.
saying, I don't know that I want to do this again. You know, I'm like, I don't really, I realize I don't enjoy this process. I don't like this process. And she goes, yeah, but it's part of the process nonetheless.
Mm.
And you're either going to get on board with it and do your job, which I absolutely am obviously doing and gonna do, and it's gonna be what it's gonna be, and then just let go. And I think
Mm.
that that was sort of the wisdom that I wanted to share in today's episode, was this idea of really letting go. And in the book, I talk about surrender and how surrender used to be a triggering word for me, because I felt like surrender was such a, it was, there's such a deep finality to it. Like, I give up control. And in the association I had for myself and my experience, my life, growing up in this sort of victimhood mentality
Mhm.
and feeling like I was powerless, the last thing I wanted to do was give up of any little power that I felt.
Mm.
So I have a different relationship to it now, but I really do enjoy more this idea of letting go and allowing the process to be what it's going to be. And it's like, people that are going to buy the book are going to buy the book. People that are going to love the book are going to love the book. People that are going to hate the book are going to hate the book. People that are never going to read the book are probably not listening to this podcast. So it's just, it's a really interesting process. And in that, I found that part of my self-care practice for the next coming days, especially as we near the 22nd, today's the 9th, and we are recording these now in real time. So you guys are really getting the inside scoop. Uh, I think it's just clocking out, at a decent time, and just releasing, doing everything I can, and knowing that I did everything I can and not beat myself up over it. Like, all we
Mhm.
can do is our best. And you and I have been talking about this via text, right? Like, oh, there's a lot of things going on, because you get like that too, right? You get hard on yourself.
Oh
You
yeah.
overthink things, you read things through just to make sure you understand. And I'm just like, like, it is what it is. Like, what are you gonna do? Like,
Yeah.
things are gonna fall through the cracks, or we're gonna make mistakes, and that's okay. Like, it really
Mhm.
is okay. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, speaking of surrendering, and I want to kind of go back to one thing that you touched on with regards to the wisdom that you pulled out of that conversation with Jeannie in relationship to surrender. And that is that even though you don't like this part of the marketing process, and even though Jeannie gave you this sage advice, like this is part of the process, you're either going to show up and do the job. The thing that I find so wise in what you're doing is giving voice to it. Like, you're at
Yeah.
least able to speak your truth and allow it to be something that doesn't need to be fixed per se, but instead surrendering it to being something that you have to go through and experience as part of the process. I think that's just so important in terms of like being able to voice our grievances, our vices, our
Yes.
things that feel icky and we don't like to experience, but know that it's part of the human experience anyways. Like, you bring
Yes.
stuff like this to maybe your partner, or your bestie, or a parent, somebody that you trust. And oftentimes I feel like that other person's knee-jerk reaction is to fix, right?
Yes.
Which may or may not be what you need in that moment, but the truth and the wisdom in you just speaking it out loud usually makes it so much lighter, I find. Don't
Yeah,
you find?
absolutely. 100%. The more that we feel empowered in our own truth, the easier it becomes for us to set those parameters for self-care and self-acceptance and radical self-love.
Mhm.
That is the purpose of why we do all of these practices. I can't tell somebody to just relax and let go and just be grateful and just enjoy the process. Like, everything you can do, you've already done, and just let it go. I mean, I can give myself advice all day long, but am I going to actually take it to heart? And just to your point, I think it's important to be able to express it. It's okay for me to have a feeling, to have a couple of those moments where I can call my bestie and send her a voice note and say, I'm really having a hard time right now, or I'm feeling a little bit nervous about X, Y, and Z. What do I do? Um, and then there's this deep relief in the feeling of, okay, I can let go. Like I've done everything I could do. Because at the end of the day, those of you that are here, those of you that are listening, there has to be a situation in your life where you really have done everything you could, and you have to then just let it go. There's a point where just that's the process, right?
Mhm.
We can't cling. Clinging leads to resentment and regret and more samskaras, more mounds at the bottom of the lake, more negative impressions that aren't going to serve your highest good. So why would we do that to ourselves? Well, we do that because we are, like us, type A personalities, and it's just what we do. But we also do the letting go.
Mhm.
It's the realization or having the cathartic experience of expressing. And maybe if you don't have somebody to express yourself to, you can write it down. You can have like a word dump on a page and just like let it go, write it all on there, everything that you're feeling, and then just keep moving. Like my dad says this thing where whenever I've encountered something really difficult, he's very kind and loving, and everything is like, well, you do your best, and then you just don't dwell on it, you just keep
Mhm.
going.
Mhm.
And I'm like, oh, but sometimes I just don't feel like I can keep going. And he's like, well, what are you gonna do, just lay down and die? And I'm like, yes. Like sometimes I feel like yes, but most of the time it's like, God, why is that my only option, is to just lay down and die? Why can't I just have a moment and then, let that revolution of experience happen and then get up and move on? And I think that that's part of self-care too, isn't it? To just allow ourselves to have that time and space to feel all
Mhm.
the feelings and allow yourself to have those moments of breakdown where you just express all of your grievances and express all of the things that you think are going to go wrong, and just know that you're just doing your best. I mean,
Yeah.
truly, there's
Yeah.
no way of knowing whether this book is going to be a success. There's no way of knowing it. And as much as I want to try and control a situation, like there there's no way of knowing. So you just have to let go and just be happy that you are doing and living your dharma, you're living your purpose, and remember what your why is. Why are you doing this? Why are you here?
Mhm.
And when you think about that at the forefront of your mind and you keep putting that in front of you, none of the rest matters. It really
Mhm.
doesn't. It really does not.
Yeah. I love that. I wanted to add to what you said your self-care practice was, because I think that, and I'm not with you 100% of the time, so I'm not sure what it actually looks like on a day-to-day basis or on the weekends, but to me, and we work closely together, as Rosie was saying. So it feels like you really are very good at clocking out during the weekday, but also it feels like on the weekends. And yes, there are mitigating circumstances where sometimes there will be a flurry of emails,
Right.
but
We just ignore. I'm like, do not respond.
don't open this till Monday.
Yeah.
But I was reflecting on this last Saturday, because I did something kind of radically different for me, which was I gave myself, and this was terrifying, Rosie and listeners, it was so scary, but I gave myself a digital detox day Saturday. I put my phone in the space where I record. I left it here Friday night, and I did not come back and look at it once until Sunday morning. And like during all of the stuff that's going on with the summit, with the book launch, with everything we've got going on in the podcast, I was like, oh my God, Rosie's going to fire me. In my head, like these negative feedback loops were playing out. But as I went through my day, I noticed my nervous system starting to settle, because I didn't have
Mm-hmm.
this digital thing attached to my
Yeah.
hand, feeling like I had to check and refresh all the time. And it was such a really cool experience. And so I might start implementing that like regularly,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
all the time.
No, I love that. I love that you're saying that, like, is this
This is
okay?
okay.
Yeah, no, you do you, boo. Like, this is the thing, you know? I think it's important for people to be able to do that for themselves. Absolutely. I love the digital detox. I mean, and yes, you're absolutely right. The minute I say I'm clocking out, Tessa, it's like 7, whatever, 7:30, you know, maybe earlier, maybe it's 5.
Yeah.
I clock out. My phone goes to the office where my computer lives, and that's where she stays all night. And I don't look at it. You know,
Mhm.
I if there's a family emergency or there have been the occasions, you know, that people have had to call Tori, and it's very rare, but people have his number, and usually his phone stays on, so we would be able to hear it in the house if it does ring. But that's not a worry. Like after a certain time too, I notice now that I've created that practice,
Mhm.
I actually don't want to look at my phone after a certain time. Like I don't even want to look at it. There's nothing there that's going on past 6, 7 o'clock that I need to be looking at. If I had posted a story or something, I'm not like checking or responding. I'm done. Like that's a boundary. My evening starts. I usually cook dinner for Tori and I start making food. I start, you know, I turn on the boob tube, put some TV on, you know.
Yeah.
I have a show playing in the background. Maybe we're listening to music. Maybe Tori and I might karaoke. We might do some singing. But it's really nice to be able to have that as a unwinding practice. I you know this, right? As a self-employed person, you don't really ever get to clock out per se. I mean, you're working 24/7. I can work 16-hour days every day, you know,
Mhm.
if
Yeah.
I didn't set that boundary just because that's the way I am. And you know, you've like you said, you've voiced those Sunday mornings sometimes when you get it's like who's working Sunday mornings? People that work for themselves. Those are the people that are working Sunday morning.
Yep.
So, and for me, it's sort of the quiet time too of the week. I still work that Monday through Friday schedule, and usually on the weekends we're off. Like we, you know, like to have some time away, but you have to really just set those boundaries for yourself in a way to just reset to your life. Like, I mean, life is happening right now. We don't know how long we're going to be here. We don't know how long the people that we love are going to be here. And I know it's a morbid way of looking at life, but I don't want to miss an evening. I mean, I learned something new last night about my boyfriend that I've never known. And we're
Really?
just like, yeah, we're sitting in the hot tub. Like, we've been doing this ritual every night. I'm drinking my like collagen from my skin tea collagen. Hashtag
Yummy.
not an ad. Um, since my rib situation, my rib got dislocated, and I've been drinking my little collagen sparkling tea in the hot tub. And you know, Tori will join me after he clocks out for his day, and it's our time to like talk about our day because we don't see each other all day, right? Even though we both work from home, he's you know out in the garage, and I'm either in the office or out in the Zen den, and so we don't really interact all day at
Mhm.
all, barely. And then at the end of the day, that's our time to talk about what we did or, you know, just anything. But a lot of the times I also have boundaries with conversation. Like sometimes I'm like, I don't want to talk about work because especially right now, Tori will say things like, oh, have you thought about doing this? Or, oh, we should contact this person. Oh, have you thought about doing this for the book? And are you going to do that? And it's just like, bro, not right now. Like I'm clocked out. Like
Yeah.
as exciting as all of that is, that's great. I just spent the last 10 hours doing work. Like this is my time to just unwind and stare at the stars. I don't want to talk about work. And so
Mhm.
and sometimes I'm fine with it and I'm in work mode and I want to bounce ideas off of him and that's great. But yeah, I learned something new about him. You know, he's in the middle of doing this really cool class. It's called the Sam Christensen Process. And I've talked to you about it in the past before.
Mhm.
I did the class because of him. He did it in back in the 90s. It's this sort of like I don't want to say it's for actors, but it teaches you about your essences, like your first impression that people get from you. And the idea is to help you get more jobs, right? More casting, get callbacks for castings, etc. Because essentially you're owning more of what people see from the outside. Like if I look at you and you look studious and, I mean, God, this is so nuanced. Like, I don't even want to try and explain it on this podcast. But let me just tell you, if you are interested in anything that I just said, check out the Sam Christensen School. It's the Sam Christensen Process. Anyway, Tori's in the middle. I did it for the second time last 2 months ago with Sahara and my friend Cassandra, just for fun, because it was a fun thing to do. But Tori's in the middle of doing it right now. And I just learned something about how he sees himself. And we were having this conversation. I'm like, wow, that was like, and I'm not going to share because that's private. And I think it's kind of rude if I start to say it, 'cause I almost did, but it was a very, very insightful conversation. And I looked at him and I'm like, wow, we've been together for 18 years and I never knew that about you.
Mm.
And it made me very like excited, because I was like, wow, that's, first of all, yeah, being with somebody, this for as long as we have, you kind of know everything at this point, mostly, or you assume.
Right.
But to be able to have that conversation, that wouldn't have happened had I still been working on my computer, had my phone, or we would have been sitting watching a show, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Oh, I love that. That's so sweet. And just the fact that, you're open to learning about each other still after decades of being together and discovering each other still is such a, I mean, you have to, right? Like, I
Yeah,
think that in order to create that relationship that has that longevity and continues to grow, you have to continue to be curious about each other
absolutely.
and want to grow yourself,
Yeah,
hopefully.
1,000%. Yeah, yeah, true, right? And sometimes I feel like, and sometimes I don't. I'm like, I don't want to
Yeah.
fucking talk to you right now?
Mhm.
Um, that literally just ruined that sweet moment, that little comment I just made right now.
Well, I mean, it's both sides, right? Like they both exist
Hey,
and there's space.
I'm all about the paradox test. You know
I
this.
know. I love it.
Okay, so today's actually a very special experience for everybody, because we do have a guest here for Wisdom Wednesday. Sarah Mcdevitt. She is like, she's a special treat for us. She, damn it. Sorry guys, there's like this little weird stop that I just made because my her bio just went out, and I didn't want to be rude and just pretend like I knew her entire history, because I don't. Um, Sarah Mcdevitt is the head of mind technology under Hyperrise. She is the founder of Core, which aims to support and encourage the way people take care of their mental health. And one little insight to why I wanted to talk to her was because there's this device, this Core device. It's like a handheld experiential uh, device. I want to call it a gadget for people who have a hard time meditating with just sound. So it gives you like, the thing vibrates and it's got color, it lights up. Like, it's really cool if you're the type of person that needs a tactile experience.
Mhm.
And I don't know how I ended up with this device at my home, but I did, and I opened it. And I mean, I get cool stuff all the time, man. I mean, this is just literally hashtag blessed. Like, so
Mm.
lucky. Tessa sometimes gets some cool stuff in the mail too. She has actually a package coming right now. She's like, what?
Exciting.
Yeah, but we have really great partnerships, really great sponsors that send us cool things all the time. And I got this device, and I happened to open it while my mom was here, and she'd just been talking about how she has a hard time with meditation, because I've talked about it before. Sorry, mom, I know you're listening to this because you listen to all the shows. I'm sorry, I'm calling you out, but like, she's the person that's listening to the meditation while checking her email?
Mhm. Mhm.
So like, have to laugh a little bit. But this is a really cool thing for her to just sit there and hold while she's doing a quick 5-minute meditation. And so I did a little bit of research, and I reached out to them and asked, I'm like, well, what can I get somebody on the show to just talk about this? Because it was so helpful for her. And I think that there's a lot of people that are listening to this that would find pretty huge value in it. So
Mm.
that being said, here's my conversation with Sarah Mcdevitt. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Radically Loved podcast. I'm joined by a very special guest today to talk about some really fun topics. She has no idea what we're going to talk about, so it's going to be a surprise for her, too. Sarah Mcdevitt, the head of Mind Technologies, is here with us today. She also she's fucking rad. Just so you guys know, I'm like, there's no. I was just telling her this. I was gonna go into this whole diatribe, but I'm like, you have such an incredible background, and so welcome to the show. Hi, hello.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Excited to chat. For everyone listening, we just kind of started diving right in. And so we're like, wait, maybe we should actually start the podcast. So this is going to be a fun one. We just started chatting.
We just started talking. I'm like, hold on, let me just record this because we're already here. So you have this incredible background in sports, playing basketball. So I kind of want to know what led you to doing this right now. Like how did you end up here being like the head of this this Mind Technologies division?
Yeah. So I started my, well, I played basketball in college, like you said, and always grew up, in sports and was very in tune with kind of physical fitness. I love super physical sports like boxing and basketball and that whole kind of like, I guess traditional view of what toughness is,
Yes.
And a couple years after I started, just after college working, and I was working at Microsoft. My background is in software and engineering, and a couple years into just being a normal working human, I suddenly started to experience anxiety myself, and it was just something I had never identified with before. It's definitely, once I learned more about it, it's definitely something I had experienced before, but I had never known what to call it. I never knew what it was. And I always had this view of like, well, we'll tough it out, like suck it up. And this was suddenly something that I couldn't just like go to the gym for, it just wasn't something I knew about. And so someone introduced me to meditation at the time. And even though I grew up in like Seattle, I make fun of my parents for being hippies. They say they weren't, but I just had never been introduced to meditation. And, I'd known about yoga. I had done yoga, but all for physical fitness. Like it was just kind of everything in me was oriented towards that. And so this was my first kind of foray into like, what the heck is going on in my mind, and what is meditation, and something about it really clicked for me, but it also opened up my mind to just realizing that so much of what I had experienced, just outside of myself, from family members, friends, teenagers that I had tutored and worked with in basketball, I just realized how at the foundation of everything that we do every day, there is this inner core of mental and emotional health.
Yeah.
And it goes up and down and, all sorts of ways throughout our lifetime, whether or not you're ever diagnosed with anything or have a name for anything. But it was a very eye-opening time frame for me to, just see that if we don't think of mental health as this foundational element of our being and of our everyday life and of our society, really, we're just ignoring something that affects every single thing that we do.
Yeah. And a huge portion of the population, especially now, right? Because so many people, I mean, I can obviously relate to this, growing up with debilitating panic attacks and like anxiety, dealing with depression at a young age and not really understanding how to deal with it. And it wasn't until I found yoga and meditation that I learned that I actually have the power to direct my mind into different places. And so I can absolutely relate to that. And I love that you are uh, really excited and focused on creating something for people to utilize as a way to manage their anxiety. So you're here. Actually, there's a couple of reasons why you're here. I like that I'm going to tell you why you're here. um,
Me too.
yeah. So tell us what the core is, and tell us how this is like literally the best invention ever for somebody that has major ADD and has never been able to meditate before. And the reason why I whatever, you go first, you tell everybody, and then I'll tell everybody my experience. I'm
Okay, awesome.
excited. I'm excited. That's the problem.
So core is a physical device. It's an object that you hold in your hands, and it connects with an app as well. And it guides meditation and breath training exercises with vibration in your hands. And then it also tracks biofeedback. And the biofeedback's purpose is really just to help that self-awareness of, how do different techniques work for me personally? How is my mind and body connected? Like, how do these mental exercises, how does my body respond to them? And so first and foremost, all the research on meditation and breath training, like consistency is key. And of course, consistency is the hardest part. And so we just really wanted to build something that brought together science and research, ancient traditions, and new technology to help people be consistent with meditation and breath training. So just holding core, it's kind of like, the size of a softball. It's made with really natural wood. It has biosensors in it. It has lights that guide you as well. And so you just hold it and kind of like, it's very centering and very grounding, and just gives you that that touchstone to focus on, as your mind wanders, as it will during meditation. It gives you that subtle little, really just soothing and grounding reminder to help you keep your attention in the present moment.
Yeah, it's such an incredibly effective device. And I have found this as a meditation guide and yoga teacher that for some people, they're more tactile.
Mm-hmm.
They need that kinesthetic experience of something happening, because closing their eyes can be a little bit ungrounding. It can
Yeah.
be a little bit frenetic.
Mm-hmm.
And so somebody like my mom, and we were just talking about this before we started, she is one of these people that I was actually making fun. Sorry, Mom. I know you listen to the podcast. I'm
Hi, Mom.
totally, yeah. Hi. But I laugh because she's this person that will listen to a meditation app or listen to a meditation while like checking her emails.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh no, but I'm meditating. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're checking your emails or you're texting. That's not the point. And so
Yep.
when she came over soon after I got the core in the mail, and I was like, Mom, you have to try this. I think you'd really like this experience. And I set her up with it, put the headphones on and put the app on her phone, and I connected it, via Bluetooth, and it was boom, she sat there and she was like, oh, this is really nice. I really enjoy the vibrations. And I'm like, yes. I'm like, that's really great. I'm like, how did you feel? She's like, oh, I felt really good. Like a good meditation. And I'm like, no, Mom, this is like how you meditate. It's not,
I love that.
the experience of having to put your full awareness and attention on a thing. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, it's this yogic philosophical text that we teach in yoga, and in my yoga teacher trainings, we talk about this text at length. This is one of the ways to focus the mind. It's either using a affirmation, a mantra, uh, fixed on a single pointed focus, like the flicker of a flame,
Mm-hmm.
or to hold something, to have your hands holding a rock, or, I love that it's the natural wood
Hmm.
on the core. It's like, it feels nice and it's so perfect. You guys did a really good job with
Thank you.
the fitting. It's a very comfortable fit, and your
Hmm.
thumbs go right on top of these sensors. And I think that one of the reasons why I reached out to you guys, and I'm like, oh, you guys have to come talk about this, because I feel like it's going to help so many people. There's so many people out there that I know, especially right now, where
Hmm.
it feels like there's been a huge surge of people struggling with panic attacks and anxiety and mental health. A device like this, doing something consistently, like you were saying, can really make the world of difference. So I'm curious, what the what is the vision behind this device? Like, what are you guys wanting to do, and have you done some research on this in the last 2 years? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're so right. So we launched Core actually right before the pandemic started. And we actually started with a meditation studio as well that had Core in it. We could bring community together, like bringing people together around this and kind of really normalizing these practices has also always been a goal. Of course, we had to shut that down right away. But once the pandemic began, and over the last 2 years, I think that on the one hand, like you said, so many more people are struggling. It's been very life altering for everyone,
yeah.
and very unanchoring, right? Like it
Yes.
really, it just sort of took people's, the anchors of your daily life. It kind of uprooted people. And on the plus side, though, of that, sort of like the silver lining that I hang on to out of kind of the darkness of the last couple of years, is that finally people are really talking about mental health as something that 100% of people, all of us, every single one of us, has to pay attention to. Whereas before the pandemic, it really was, if you looked up stats for mental health, we only talked about mental health in the context of mental illness and of diagnosed conditions. And before the pandemic, that was already high numbers, that, 1 in 5 um, people would have a diagnosed mental illness, or mental health condition. But to me, like, that has never been the full story. Like, I never went and got diagnosed. Well, I did eventually, but in the beginning, I never went and got a diagnosis. I took a very like kind of naturopathic path at first, but 100% my life was like very affected by what was going on in my mental health. And so anyway, I think, over the last 2 years, that is the kind of the one thing I hang on to, that now, whether or not anyone has ever wanted to talk about the word anxiety or depression or, whatever, or go talk to a professional, they're at least, listening to podcasts like this. They're at least talking to people about like, okay, I need something. I need to be doing something to
Yeah.
keep my mind resilient and flexible and just keep feeling okay and keep feeling good and be able to take what comes. Because I think one of the hardest things about the last 2 years is the ambiguity.
Yes.
There's been so much
Not
unknown,
knowing.
not
Yeah.
knowing, and it's hard to plan ahead in your life. It's hard to have these kind of, things to look forward to if you can't
Yeah.
plan ahead. And, and so one of the things that meditation research really focuses on is, resilience. And it's not like you'll never feel a bad emotion if you're like a, meditator all the time, or you'll never get stressed. Like, that's not it at all. It's really about kind of building up the flexibility and resilience so that when those really powerful emotions or things happen in your life, that you already have built up some of the practices that will help you keep your own anchor through that time period.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I think it's such a simple thing to focus on. It's such a simple thing to remember that regardless of what's happening outside of our environment or even our internal environment, we still all need that anchor. We still all need that moment of stillness. And yeah, I talk about it at length, right? I talk about mindfulness and meditation all day long, and how the benefits of it can help your brain and your body and your endocrine system and your central nervous system, and we can go on and on. But at the end of the day, will you do it?
Yeah,
Will you
exactly.
do it, and will you do it consistently, and will you
Mm-hmm.
do it enough to where it actually starts to make a difference? And I feel like now is the perfect time to learn how to integrate a meditation practice or a breathing practice or a calming practice into your life. Like, we need it so much right now. It's
Mm-hmm.
such a such an intense time for so many people right now, with the not knowing or the job loss, or just like the external tensions of the world,
Mm-hmm.
the constant fighting, the divisiveness.
Mm-hmm.
How do you then go into your daily routine and not have those externalities weighing on your subconscious?
Yeah. And you're so right about, consistency and that anchor. And so, I mean, one of the things that we started out with core, like part of the reason it's a physical thing, and it's very designed to look good in your, on your desk in
It's
your
in our living
office,
room.
or yeah, in your living room,
Yeah.
on your nightstand, because it's so easy to, even if you have the best intention to meditate every day, it's just so easy for that to get lost in, in the swing of things. And especially if it kind of only starts from your phone, right? Like if it's only an app, we certainly have an app. That's where our instructors live in the app and everything. But if it only lives there, it's just so easy to get distracted from
Right.
all the notifications, all the emails, et cetera, that are coming from your phone. And so we designed core to be this physical thing, not only because that kinesthetic, that sense of touch, that vibration in your hands is so helpful during the meditation, but also so that you like wake up, you see core sitting on your nightstand, and you're like, I want to pick you up, and
Yeah.
it's like that physical thing in your environment that kind of helps keep your meditation practice front of mind. Like you see it, you want to pick it up, and also just connected to the real world that we live in, the physical world that we live in.
Yeah. Yes. I have it under, it's in the living room right underneath on my, like, I guess, what is this, like a credenza?
Mm-hmm.
I'm like playing charades. I'm like, what is the thing that's right below the TV? But it sits right there in front of the
Yeah,
TV. So it at the end of the
nice.
day, when it's time to wind down, Tori and I might want to sit and watch a show for a little bit, but it's right there. And I'm like,
Yep.
okay, hold on. I just want to like do this for just like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. And it's really nice. It's really nice to have that as a, now you've created that neurological pathway, if it's
Mm-hmm.
something that you can see. So again, it's such a helpful thing for people that need the actual physical experience, to
Yep.
have. And I am such a technology geek when it comes to meditation, because I love reading articles and journals about the science and all this software and technology that's coming out, that's showing us the benefits of mindfulness, meditation, being present, these mindful practices. Because I'm like, yes, the more this becomes mainstream, the more
Mm-hmm.
people understand how helpful it is for their everyday life to integrate it into their physiology, so that they can start to create that space for themselves. So
Yeah.
I'm curious for you, in working in this tech space, I guess tech space,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Like, what is the vision? Like, what is it that you are wanting to? And by the way, how I'm so bummed that there was a studio, and
Oh, I know.
where was it?
One day it was in San Francisco, in kind of the middle of the city. We wanted to, give people a space. It was like, chaos, busy downtown outside, and we wanted to give people this like incredible oasis inside, but maybe one day, but yeah, I mean, the tech piece of it, and the connection to physical health is a huge part of this with our biofeedback. And that was really one of the big things that stood out to me when I actually when I started to go down this path, I then went to grad school and did a master's degree researching mental wellness. And a big part of that was the long-term physical health effects of stress, anxiety, worry. And, on the other hand, of course, the physical health impact of practices like breath training and meditation. And it was really powerful to me. There are so many reasons that you could be coming to meditation, from things that are, impossible to measure, like spirituality or just connection or communication or patience. But then there are also physiological effects that we can measure. And so, for me, I was like, well, why don't we give people that awareness, give people biofeedback? Sensors could now be integrated into anything, right? They're tiny, the technology is great. And so let's get them in there in a really natural way. And then just give people that ability to track how their body and physiology responds to practices over time, really to help give confidence, in the practice, and help give self-awareness. And so core tracks your nervous system, essentially. So we track ECG, electrocardiogram, which essentially gives us your heart and kind of your nervous system balance through heart rate variability. And so while you're meditating consistently with core, then you get these, little readings every day or every time you meditate, and you can see how that trends over time as well. And how, we track sort of calm time and focus time, and different, breath training exercises. Some are meant to really calm down your nervous system. Some are meant to get you a little bit more focused. Like if you're in that sleepy afternoon slump, you can do a energizing breath training practice. And so we can show you that as well. So it's just a great reinforcer to kind of bring body and mind together in a way that you can actually see through data.
Yeah. And I'm, again, a data super freak. I want to see what is going on. I want to look at my reports. I want to be able to measure, and especially for you, I would imagine as an athlete, right? Like you want to measure your performance. I know that sounds so wrong and backwards as a meditation teacher, being like, I want to see what my meditation performance is like. But I think it has more to do with, I really value any self-care practice and any practice that's going to give you a long life. I mean, I didn't grow up in an environment where we were focused on let's focus on health for the longevity of this little human being. It was like, this is the food we have. We basically it's all fat Latin, Hispanic, like tortillas, like Mexican rice and beans, and delicious. I'm not complaining. It's like the best. But, it's like, as a teenager, it was McDonald's, fast foods. I was on the sad, standard American diet. And so that affects your health, obviously. It affects your mind. It affects everything. And so I feel that the more information we have as adults, and those of you that are parents out there, we can start to learn how these decisions at a young age start to affect us long term. I mean, can you imagine if we were taught? I mean, they do this in India. I mean, they teach children how to meditate, at a young age. And even though maybe kiddos don't know what they're doing, they understand the importance of quiet time. Like my niece, my sister-in-law has my niece do her meditation. It's quiet time, it's like quiet, and it's just silence, and she sits there and she draws, and she, you know what I'm saying? Like there's that sort of focus on creating that space and that focus of there's no input. Like, just stop what you're doing. We are getting so much information constantly on computers, on our phones, on our devices. Everything is giving us constant feedback. It's like, bring all of your awareness, all of your attention to a single pointed focus, which, just to throw it back to the yogic philosophy, is that is where our yoga is,
Mhm.
our single pointed focus. That is where we create that conduit of peace and calm. And to have a device like this that gives you feedback for our, like egoic mind to be like, I want to know how well I'm doing. So sorry, I went on a tangent.
No, it's totally, well, it's funny because during my master's, I was working with high school classrooms on how to bring some of these practices into, busy, loud classrooms of
Yes.
30, 16-year-olds and their
I didn't even
teacher.
think about the teens.
Oh yeah. And the kids are just super sharp. And I was kind of worried about like, oh, are they going to think this is dumb? And, how am I going to get them bought into it, et cetera. But really, like, they were so open to it. And they were like, yeah, this is the only 5 minutes of the day where nobody's bothering me. And they loved it. And it is exactly that, like, constant input. I mean, especially if you think about, I've worked a lot with teenagers. It's kind of like, I love teenagers. It's just such a crazy time of your life.
Yes.
And, if you think about it, teenagers are at this interesting time where they're seeking a ton of independence, but it's really hard for them to get time to themselves. They're either surrounded by other teenagers or their families. They're being told what to do a lot, and they're really trying to exert that control in their life. And, like you said, it's kind of a luxury to be able to think about long-term health. For a lot of people, kids, adults, are in that mode of like, I'm getting through the week, that kind of short-term survival or, short-term health. And one of the things that, and because they don't necessarily feel that they have the control to impact their longevity or their long-term health, or kind of the capacity to get there, or think about that, or prioritize that. And one of the things that meditation, I think, really does or can do is help anyone feel like they have that moment of control within their own life.
Yeah.
And there's awesome research about that in terms of like the health benefits, mental and physical, of feeling agency in your own life and authority in your own life. And that's true for adults. And I think that also starts really young. So yeah, a lot of the ideas for core were actually developed like with a bunch of 16-year-olds. And it turns out we all need them. We're not that different,
Yeah. It's so man, yeah, as I was saying that, like, oh, we'd be so much further along had we had these tools as young kids, like to have that feedback or have that time or have that experience. And fine, you don't need to have a device to do it, but having the support of something tangible, as I said, is super helpful, especially again, if you love to have that feedback and you love to have that information. So
Yep.
is there anything you want to share with the listeners specifically about the core? Like, what excites you the most about it? What are you looking forward to the most?
Yeah, I mean, we have such a huge kind of roadmap in front of us. We are a very innovative group and we're always listening. This all started with just like really deep empathy for what do people need? Like, what do you need for us to help you on a daily basis? Just bring in like those practical little exercises that are going to really have a good effect. So we are an open door. Please reach out to us, email us. My email is smcdevitt@hyperice.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. But yeah, so Core started as a startup that I started a couple of years ago, and then we were acquired by Hyperice, which, if you're familiar with like the Hyperice Hypervolt massage gun or the Normatec air compression boots that everyone's wearing right now, I love it. They feel so good. We're now part of them. So we've established a mind technology division within Hyperice, and so yeah, we're constantly innovating. We're working on the app, and we would love to hear anyone and everyone's thoughts about Core and thoughts about what we can do next.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. So all of the links that Sarah mentioned will be in the show notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, the show notes will be below. If you're listening to this wherever you get your podcasts, then just go to the info button and all of the links will be there, including how to connect with Sarah directly. So if you have any questions, so I just want to take a brief moment to thank you for being here and for sure. See how fast this was so fast.
I know, I can't believe it.
This wisdom, I'm like this little wisdom nugget that we snuck in here for everybody to listen to. I hope that you are inspired to check this out. And that you find value in it. And just so that everybody knows, this is not a sponsored experience. I have to say that because sometimes like we get listeners that are like, oh, is this a sponsor? I'm like, this is actually something that I used and really loved and just saw the writing on the wall, especially knowing so many people that need to have something like this to help them create a consistent meditation practice. So I'm like, oh my God, let's see if Sarah is willing to come on the show and talk about it a little bit. So I really appreciate you coming on here.
Oh, thank you so much. I mean, this was so much fun. That was, I don't know what that was, 30 minutes. We could talk about this for like 4 hours.
I know, literally, we're just getting started.
Yeah, I mean, this is everything.
So you'll have to just come
thank
back
you.
and do this
Yeah,
again.
okay. That sounds good.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for coming and for being here with us today.
Have a good one.